Hey everybody, this week we're going to discuss several different types of phrases. I bet you didn't know that English could ever look like algebra, did you? I know there's a lot of information here this week and it can be a bit overwhelming, so don't let that stress you. We'll be focusing on some of this for future chapters as well, and you've been given your textbook and some really cool table summaries or figures that you can use throughout the week and on your tests and stuff. So let's look at a few things that you're going to read about this week. Many people look at sentences and they just see a bunch of words. As grammarians, we look at the same sentences and see so much more. First of all, we look at the sentences in segments. Those are called subjects and predicates. The subject is the topic of the sentence, and the predicate is what the topic does. Remember, the subject and predicate are usually made up of more than just one word. The book shows us many great examples of subjects and predicates in sentences. After you find the subject, which is really the focus noun of the sentence and other words that describe it, you look at the predicate, which is really the focus verb and words that describe it. Sometimes you will see adverbs in sentences. They can function in a variety of places in a sentence, so just remember they always modify verbs. I have to confess that I'm one of those grammar geeks who loves to diagram sentences. This chapter is full of diagramming. I'll admit it gets a little overwhelming even for me because there are so many different types of equations, as we could call them. So don't let that worry you. We could spend the whole term just on this one chapter. So we're just going to work through it briefly. In chapter 4, we read a little bit about form. We use the term form in connection with classes of words such as prefixes and suffixes that attach to and change the form of words. So when we are trying to make verbs past tense, many times we add the ed to the verb. That's the form there, changes the form there. We can't always look at the form of the word to determine information about it. Sometimes we have to look at its position in a phrase or a sentence to determine the class to which it belongs. If a word can occupy a slot in a frame in a sentence, often we can demonstrate its function as the part of speech occupied by that slot in the sentence. When we break a sentence into constituent parts, the parts or components form which sentences are constructed. We break it into phrases, sequences of words that form a syntactic unit but are not actual complete sentences. Every phrase has a head word that determines the kind of phrase it is and gives it a name such as noun phrase, verb phrase, prepositional phrases, adjective, and adverb phrases. A noun phrase is a noun or any group of words that can substitute for a noun. A main verb phrase is the main verb of the sentence plus its auxiliary. When we were in high school and grammar school even, and our teachers usually called auxiliaries helping verbs. An adjective phrase is an adjective or any group of words that can substitute as an adjective. And an adverb phrase is an adverb or any group of words that can substitute for an adverb. Figure 7.1 in your book is a great way to help you test the phrases to determine which part of speech they are. And figure 7.2 gives you a great overview of the summary of the principal parts of the verb. You'll see that each form takes a different ending, and you're probably familiar with most of these. As you look through the various types of language structure, you may notice that the complements are mentioned. These are noun phrases, adjective phrases, or adverb phrases that complete the meaning of the main verb and are in the predicate. I'm guessing that you all use many of these verb forms in the chapter, but you may not know what they're called. As you look at the perfect tenses, you'll see that they all have one word in common, a form of have. The present perfect tense uses have or has with the main verb. And then the past perfect tense uses had. The future perfect tense I don't have here, but it uses will or shall with have. Where the perfect tenses use forms of the word have, the progressive tenses use forms of the word be and the verbs that end in ing. The present progressive tense uses is, which is a form of be, plus an ing verb. The past progressive uses was, which is the past tense of be, and the ing verb. Future progressive uses will or shall with the ing. We're not done with all those forms yet. We have to combine them together. This is the perfect progressive form. Present perfect progressive, say that real fast 3 times, uses the helper have, so it's got the helper have plus been with the ing verb. The past progressive uses had plus been with the ing verb form. And the future progressive, like the other futures, uses shall or will and then have been and then the ing verb. So that might be an example of that was I will have been teaching. I guess it should have, I shall be teaching? No. I will have been teaching sounds much better to me for 23 years next year. I wanted to remind you that even though that we've been using some of these smaller words as helper words or auxiliary verbs so far, remember they can sometimes serve as the main verb of the sentence. Figure 7-7 is a fabulous way to see the difference. All the verb forms we read about in this chapter are used. I think it's really a great figure or summary of everything, and it helps just make it more clear to you. I thought the discussion about can and may was quite interesting at the end of the chapter. I know that when I was growing up, can was saying you were capable of doing something, and may was asking permission. I still remember asking my 4th grade teacher, Miss Kelly, can I go to the bathroom? And every time, you know what she said? I don't know. Can you? Well, interestingly enough, the textbook says that there's not really a major distinction in most dictionaries and handbooks for those 2 words anymore. So many people are using them interchangeably now. If you look at figure 7a, you'll see the meanings of many of the helpers or auxiliaries and how they're used in sentences. Another interesting comparison the text gives us is between shall and will. Shall is usually used with first-person subjects, such as I shall or we shall, but will is usually used with second or third-person subjects, such as you, and all the others to express statements about the future. But you noticed just a minute ago, I went with will because shall just didn't sound right. So even those are kind of used interchangeably now. A lot of people don't like to use shall because it sounds so old school. We will discuss the indicative mood throughout the whole chapter. But there are also some other moods. There's the imperative mood, which is used for commands like be still. And there's another, which is the subjunctive mood. It is used to express statements that are contrary to the facts or that follow certain verbs expressing wishes or commands. The subjunctive mood lacks the expected tense inflections. Well, I know that there's a lot to cover this week. Remember, don't let all those trees and diagrams overwhelm or confuse you. Use the figures that are provided, the tables, to help you move throughout the chapter. I think that'll help you a whole lot. So the only thing left for you to do is to have a great week.